Have you ever agreed to something in the moment, almost automatically, and then later found yourself replaying it in your head, wondering why you said yes when a part of you clearly knew you didn't want to? It is rarely a dramatic moment. It does not feel like a big decision at the time. It is usually something quite ordinary, a conversation, a request, an expectation that you quietly accept because saying yes feels easier than creating discomfort. As the day goes on, there's a small sense of unease that stays with you, a feeling that something did not quite align. Even if you cannot immediately explain why. That is what I want to explore today. Because what often looks like kindness and cooperation on the surface can sometimes be driven by something much deeper, something we rarely pause to examine. Welcome back. I'm Bhavna, founder of the Inspirated Life Co. On this channel, we explore leadership, lifestyle, and personal growth through reflection, awareness, and real-life experience, creating a space to slow down just enough to think more clearly about how we live, work, and lead our lives. One of the most common of those patterns, and one that many people carry quietly for years, is people-pleasing. It does not present itself as a problem. In fact, it often feels like strength. You're being supportive, cooperative, reliable. You're someone people can depend on, someone who keeps things running smoothly, someone who makes life easier for others. And for a long time, that is exactly how I saw it in myself. Being liked by people mattered to me more than I realized at the time. It was not something I consciously analyzed. It simply felt natural to want to maintain harmony, to make sure people around me felt comfortable, whether that was in my professional environment or in my personal life. I would adjust to my plans without thinking too much about it, take on additional responsibilities, extend my time and energy, all because it felt easier than disappointing someone or creating tension. And for a while it worked. People appreciated it. They relied on me. It reinforced the idea that I was doing the right thing, that this was what being dependable looked like. There's a certain validation that comes with being the person others turn to. And without realizing it, that validation can become quite powerful. But what I did not notice, at least not immediately, was what it was quietly costing me. Over time, something subtle began to shift. I was no longer just being helpful when it made sense. I had started taking responsibility for things that were never really mine to carry. Other people's comfort, their expectations, sometimes even their emotional state. If something felt off in a situation, I would instinctively step in to fix it, to smooth it, to make sure everything stayed balanced. And that constant adjustment began to have an impact on me. Not suddenly, but gradually. There were moments when I felt stretched, moments when I realized I had taken on more than I should have, moments when I felt a quiet frustration that I could not fully explain. And yet, even when I became aware of it, I continued, responding in the same way because by that point it was no longer a conscious decision. It had become a habit. That, I think, is the part that often goes unnoticed. People-pleasing does not always feel like choice. It becomes automatic. You respond quickly. You agree easily. You adapt without pausing to ask yourself whether this is something you actually want to do. And when that pattern continues over time, it starts to shape your internal experience in ways that are not immediately visible. Your energy begins to drain, not in an obvious way, but in a steady, consistent way that builds over time. Your clarity begins to reduce because your decisions are no longer anchored in what feels right for you, but in what maintains comfort for others. And slowly, without even realizing it, you begin to lose connection with your own voice. Instead of asking yourself, what do you think or what you need, your attention shifts towards a different question. What will people think? That shift might seem small, but it changes everything. I see this pattern very often in professional environments as well. Capable, experienced individuals who are more than able to handle their responsibilities yet find it difficult to say no when additional work is placed on them. People who hold back in meetings, not because they lack insight, but because they do not want to disrupt the flow of conversation. People who avoid necessary discussions because they anticipate discomfort, even though addressing the situation would actually create clarity. From the outside, this behavior often looks like commitment, even leadership. But internally, it can feel very different. Because when kindness is not supported by boundaries, it eventually turns into self-neglect. There is also a deeper psychological layer to this. For many people, approval becomes closely tied to identity. Being appreciated feels validating. Being liked feels reassuring. And without realizing it, we begin to organize our behavior around maintaining that sense of approval. Not because we lack awareness, but because the discomfort of not having it feels unfamiliar. For me, the turning point did not come from a single moment. It came through reflection. Through slowly noticing how often my decisions were influenced by the desire to keep things comfortable rather than by genuine intention. And once I began asking myself more honest questions, the pattern became clearer. Why do I feel responsible for everyone's comfort? Why does disagreement feel uncomfortable even when it is necessary? Why does someone else's approval sometimes matters more than my own clarity? Those questions did not immediately change my behavior, but they changed something more important. They brought awareness. And once awareness comes in, things begin to shift. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually. You start noticing the moment before you respond. You begin to recognize when you are about to agree out of habit rather than intention. You create a small pause, and in that pause, there is space to choose differently. Moving away from people-pleasing does not mean becoming less kind or less considerate. It simply means becoming more intentional about how you show up. It means understanding that saying no is not a rejection of someone else, but a form of respect for yourself. It means recognizing that honest conversations, even when they feel uncomfortable, often lead to stronger, more genuine relationships. And perhaps most importantly, it means letting go of the belief that you are responsible for managing everyone else's emotions. If this resonates with you, I would invite you to reflect on something simple. Think about the last time you agreed to something that did not feel quite right. What was guiding that decision? Was it genuine willingness, or was it the quiet discomfort of saying no? There's no need to judge that moment. Just noticing it is enough. Because that is where change begins. Not with big shifts or sudden decisions, but with small moments of awareness that allow you to reconnect with your own clarity. And over time, those moments build. They help you return to your own voice, and one that is not shaped by expectations, but grounded in what you truly think and feel. That voice is essential, not just for your personal well-being, but for the way you lead, the way you communicate, the way you make decisions. If this conversation resonates with you, I would genuinely like to hear your thoughts and experiences. These are the kind of patterns that many people carry, often without realizing how much they affect their everyday life. If you found this helpful, take a moment to like the video and share it with someone who might benefit from hearing it. And if you're interested in exploring more of these conversations around self-awareness, leadership, and personal growth, consider subscribing so you do not miss out what comes next. In the next video, we will take this a step further and explore why we care so much about what other people think. Because very often, people-pleasing is not the root. It is the result of something deeper. Until then, just begin to notice. Notice where you are choosing approval over clarity, because that awareness on its own can begin to change more than you expect. And I look forward to continuing this conversation with you in the next video. As always, stay inspirited. Bye.